Good evening, Cara alcoholic. Kevin's favorite part of the meeting is my least favorite part of the meeting when I have to speak. Thank you so much for inviting me to your meeting. Two of my favorite communicators in Alcoholics Anonymous are based in Tennessee, the great Steve Lee and the great Mike Allison. I don't know if any of you all have ever had the pleasure of hearing either of those two gentlemen speak, but they really know how to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I hope I can do Tennessee and everybody on this meeting justice. For me, anytime I'm asked to speak at a meeting, my first inclination is to say no. But I know today I have to take contrary action and say yes. You know, deep down, I just want to be liked. I want to say the right thing. I want to feel a part of, but I have this brain that tells me I'm not enough. You're not going to like me. I'm not going to say the right thing. No one's going to relate. Could even go far as to tell me I'm going to ruin Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I am filled with 100 forms of self-centered fear. I'm afraid I'm not going to get something that I want, which is your approval, or I'm going to lose something that I have, right? I'm restless, irritable, and discontent as a baseline. I'm going to read a piece of literature that I love just to ground me for this evening. I don't know if anyone's read A New Pair of Glasses by the great Chuck Chamberlain, but this is one of my absolute favorite pieces of literature, so please indulge me while I read this. Now for the last thought. The easy way is the right way. The tough way is the wrong way. There's an easy way and a hard way to do this program. The hard way is to try to do it yourself. The easy way is to know that you can't. To know that you can't and to recognize the need for help. I have never asked God one time in 29 years to keep me sober. Never asked him once. I've thanked him a million times, but I've never asked him once to keep me sober because that's not the way I read my book. The way I read my book, it says, here are the steps we took. When we take them, something happens. When we don't take them, nothing happens. So as I told Father Barney, I've never asked God to keep me sober. He asked, why not? I said, I think that's not his business. I think it's my business to do these things and his business to take care of me. And he does it. I don't have to tell him what to do about his business. You guys tell me what to do about my business and I do it. I take the steps and I'm sober. And many, many good things have happened in my life, including the disappearance of related disorders, which I didn't spend 5 seconds on. Not 5 seconds did I spend on trying to get my wife back, or the kids, or my job, or my health, or my sanity. And somehow or another, it all sort of fell together. So God's will for you and for me is fulfillment, peace, and joy. The gift of God was made at the foundation of the earth. What you came here looking for, you came here looking with. What we have to find is where it is, and it's right here inside of us. It's an inside job. Uncovering, discovering, and discarding is Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a fascinating way of life, and it gets better for 29 years to my certain knowledge, and I suspect it's going to get better forever. A world without end. Amen. I'm Cara. I'm an alcoholic. By the grace of a God that I don't always understand, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, great sponsorship and the fellowship of women inside of these rooms. I have 19 years of continuous sobriety. Thank you. Clapping for God. My sobriety date is April 1st, 2004. I have a sponsor. His name is Sam O. I have about 12 sponsees, 5 grand sponsees, and 3 great grand sponsees. I have a home group. It's a Saturday night Camden anti-social meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in Los Angeles, California. If you are ever in town, you all are welcome. I have commitments at meetings. I host a women's meeting at my home, and I have a life beyond my wildest dreams as a result of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're new, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're counting days, welcome. If you're celebrating milestones, welcome. If you're in your first 30 days or your last 30 days, welcome. And if you're celebrating a birthday, happy birthday. We have the gift of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you don't hear anything I have to say tonight, I want you to hear this one thing. This program works if you work it. And if you're new, I hope that you have what the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous calls the gift of desperation. We all deserve to have that gift. If you told me that, at 30-something years old on a Saturday night, I'd be sitting on Zoom with 187 people. That's enough to make me want to vomit, telling my story and saying that there's nowhere else I'd rather be except for in this room with all of you strangers, I would have said, you must be the person drunk and smoking crack, right? I never would have believed it. But today, the truth of the matter is there's no place I'd rather be, Kevin. I believe you asked me to speak. Thank you so much. It is an honor and a privilege to show up for my recovery today. What I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous, the life that I walked into these rooms with is not the life that I have today. I had a transformation. So if you're new and you're desperate and you have no one left to call, no one to talk to, no more money to steal, you're sitting in here wishing that you were anywhere else, but you're here because you have no other option. Congratulations. I have good news for you. You found your solution. That's also your bad news, is we're your solution. But I promise you, if you're willing to do certain things, you can have a life beyond your wildest dreams. When I got sober, an old timer said to me, this is not a program for people who want it. Because I know a lot of people who want it. This isn't a program for people who need it. Because there's sure as shit a lot of people who need it. This is a program for people who are willing to go to any lengths to have it. And my hope for each and every one of us is the willingness, one day at a time, to continue to stay in our seat. You know, I have a daily reprieve contingent upon the maintenance of my spiritual condition. A daily reprieve. Every morning I wake up with untreated alcoholism. Sometimes my untreated alcoholism is louder than others. This morning I woke up and my untreated alcoholism was loud. You know, 20 years of sobriety, almost 20 years of sobriety. It's not no time. It's not like the gentleman you shared earlier who has 66 years of sobriety and is 108 years old speaking on Tuesday, right? But, you know, I'm not, you know, in single digits. And still every morning I have untreated alcoholism. I still have to deal with life on life's terms. I still get stuck in fear, watching the numbers just, I mean, it was like 15 people, and then it was 25 people, and then it was 40 people, and it was 100 people. And I'm thinking of ways to get out of having to speak. I'm sitting in the meeting and I'm like, maybe there will be an emergency, you know, not a life-threatening one, but one that requires my immediate attention. And I can say to Kevin, hey, Kevin, I gotta go. You know, because if you're new, this is a program of rigorous honesty. So I can't lie. And if you have a good sponsor, they're going to tell you never say no to an AA request, because I learned anything that you put in front of Alcoholics Anonymous, you lose. But my self-centered fear is like, oh my gosh, they're not going to like you, Cara. You're not going to say the right thing. You should just quit. You should leave. You're an imposter. You're a failure. You're a piece of crap. Because I have a head that talks to me. And I have a head that doesn't tell me very nice things. My head never tells me it's going to be okay. I've got it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm not alone. Oh, no, no. My head tells me, you're a problem. You're not going to like you. You're different. You're a part of. See, I don't have a drinking problem. I have a thinking problem. I drank so I didn't have to think and I didn't have to feel, because I also have this God-sized hole. This God-sized hole that no amount of attention, applause, adoration, love, approval can fill. You know, and I will always look for an external thing to fill an internal problem. You know, I'm selfish and self-seeking. I am always thinking about me. There's a great speaker by the name of Bob Darrell in Las Vegas, and he says, my favorite conversation is with me about me. And man, do I relate to that. I could sit in a room all day long and have a conversation with me about me and be perfectly fine. In fact, the only time I'm really thinking about you is when I'm thinking about how you affect me. That's the kind of alcoholic that I am. Ooh, and my alcoholism is cunning, baffling, and powerful. You know, when I wake up every morning with untreated alcoholism, my alcoholism doesn't say, knock, knock, hey. Oh, my dog's gonna bark because it just thought I knocked on the door. Shh, shh, shh. Nope. My alcoholism doesn't wake up every morning like, hey, Cara, it's your alcoholism, and I'm going to try and get you as uncomfortable as possible so that I can get you to drink and use. No, that would be too easy. I'd spot that coming a mile away. The cunning, baffling, and powerful part of my variety of alcoholism, it shows up like this. I wake up. Man, you got to get out the door. You got so much to do today. You can miss your morning meditation. You did it yesterday. It's okay. Oh, that gratitude list you like to write in the beginning of the morning. It's okay. You can write it this afternoon. I'll just say the prayer as I'm pouring the coffee in the morning. I don't need to make time for God right now. Oh, that daily reflection I send to all my sponsees and the sponsee family. Someone else can do it today. I'm busy. I'm important. I got other things going on. Oh, she's calling again. That sponsee with the same problem about that job that should have fired her 6 months ago. She's still complaining about it. I don't need to take this call again. Or the other newcomer is calling about the relationship that I told her I suggested. Maybe we should get through the steps before you got in the relationship, and you got in the relationship, it's not working out and you want to talk about it again. I don't need to take that call. No, you know what? I'm not going to call my sponsor today. They're busy. They got a lot of things going on. And before you know it, I start to separate myself from you, and I separate myself from God. And then a drink and a drug looks a lot more appetizing. That's the cunning, baffling part of my type of alcoholism. I have a disease that tells me I don't have a disease, and it tells me in my own voice, right? So I have to have a spiritual solution. I have to have a spiritual solution for my problem state. I grew up in a town in El Paso, Texas, and nowhere in my town did people talk about alcoholism. Not that it didn't exist, but where I grew up, it was more important what it looked like on the outside than what it felt like on the inside. And I learned that really young. I learned to make myself look okay so that you would like me, even though deep down, I felt like I was a fraud and a failure. I can remember being a little girl. I have an Italian Catholic father and a Russian Jewish mother. And I've got this curly Jewish hair. And I went to Episcopalian school, and I would go to school every morning. I'd look at all the little Catholic and Episcopalian girls, and they'd have the straight, beautiful hair. And I thought, man, I just want to fit in. I don't want them to know that I'm different. So I started ironing my hair every morning before I would go to school. And then before I had to go to Hebrew school, I'd find a toilet or a sink, and I'd dunk my hair in that sink so it would curl up so I could just fit in like all the other Jewish little girls. I was so desperate to be a part of you, but I just so desperately never felt like I fit in. It's my alcoholism. It's the ism of my alcoholism. Neither one of my parents were alcoholic, and for a really long time, I always thought that that was a reason why I didn't fit into these rooms, because if you're anything like me, you're always looking for a way to be separate, a part of, and different. That's my alcoholism, wanting me alone, wanting me isolated, so it can get me right where it wants me. And then I realized what makes me alcoholic, and this is just my opinion, although it says it in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, is that I'm bodily and mentally different than my fellows, and when I take a drink, I can't control it. It's not about what my parents are or did. Right? That's just information. That's just information that maybe when I get into the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I can uncover and discover and discard. But what makes me alcoholic is when I pick up the first drink, all bets are off. I can't control it. My life becomes powerless, and I am unable to manage it as a result of my drinking and using. But I didn't know that as a little girl. I saw the effects that alcohol produced on my parents. I saw the effects that alcohol produced on other people in my life, and I wanted what they had because I didn't have it. When my mom drank, she was just a little bit more relaxed. You know, my dad was just a little bit happier. They had a drink, they were present, and life went on. I wanted that so bad because I did not have that. I had a peptic ulcer when I was in kindergarten. I was so stressed. What I was stressed about in kindergarten, I have no idea, other than I had a brain that just wouldn't quit. It just would not quit. My first form of escapism was fantasy. And it still is to this day. Oh my God, I was asked to speak at a meeting in Los Angeles, a really big meeting. It's called Brentwood Beginners. If you're ever in Los Angeles on a Thursday night at 7 p.m., I strongly suggest you attend. And if not, you can do it on Zoom. It's a beautiful meeting. 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, obviously. And the secretary asked me to speak. And from the moment that she was asking me to speak, I was trying to figure out a reason to say no. I was like, how can I contract COVID? Not the life-threatening kind, but the kind where it's not appropriate to be around other people, still in the symptomatic stage. How can I get out of having to speak? And when it became clear that I wasn't going to be able to get out of speaking and that I was going to have to honor my commitment to this meeting, I started to fantasize about how it would go. And two fantasies came to mind. The first fantasy that came to mind, wow, you should have seen it. I mean, it was, I gave the best talk that Brentwood Beginners has ever heard. I gave the best talk that Alcoholics Anonymous had ever heard. I mean, there was a standing ovation. People were like, Bill Cleveland, you should hear Cara S. You know, Chuck Chamberlain, she should write a new pair of glasses part 2. I mean, we got to call the secretary and give this secretary an award for getting this speaker. And I'm just relishing. This is all happening in my mind. Then suddenly the second fantasy comes into mind. 20 seconds in, people getting up, they're scoffing, they're kicking styrofoam cups, they're hanging up their chairs, they're booing. The steering committee, I don't even know if there's a steering committee to this meeting, but they're getting together and they're gonna revoke the secretaryship of the secretary because she doesn't know how to pick speakers. Cara S is the worst speaker to ever speak in Alcoholics Anonymous. Those are my two options. I'm either the biggest piece of shit you've ever heard, the worst of the worst failure, or I'm the best, dominating in grandiosity. You know, those are my thoughts. I don't know how to just be. I don't know how to just be one of the many. And I'm going to make it about me. Never mind that I'm speaking to the newcomer. Never mind that this is really about a God using me to carry the message. When I'm not in my tools, I'm thinking about me. And I'm either the best of you or I'm the worst of you, but I'm never just a part of you. So as I'm vacillating between, giving the best speech of my life and, being booed out of Alcoholics Anonymous, which of course no one ever has, but, I'm so terminally unique that I'm going to be the first one to ever be booed out of Alcoholics Anonymous. I get a text message. And I can only see the first part of the text message. It says, hey, it's from a fellow. Hey, Cara, I just got elected speaker at La Cienega Park, another huge meeting. And I'm like, oh man, it's getting around. I'm a circuit speaker now. I didn't even ask for it. Are they going to start paying me to do this? I mean, now I got to speak at La Cienega Park. I mean, first Brentwood Beginners and now La Cienega Park. Oh my gosh, that's going to torment me because I've been thinking about it since I've been asked. Some might use the term obsessing about it since I've been asked. Finally, I get up the courage to open the message, and the message says, hey, Cara, just been elected secretary at La Cienega Park. I was wondering if you had the name to that really great speaker, Pat O. I'd really love to have him speak for me. Oh, and by the way, if you'd like to introduce a speaker sometime, I'd love to have you lead the meeting. Well, she went right to the top of my 10th step for the evening, but I responded like any good alcoholic, and I said I'd be happy to pass along Pat O's number, and sure, I would love to speak for you. It's not going to be, or I'd love to lead for you, but it's not going to be this Thursday because I'm speaking at Brentwood Beginners, because it's always, it's never enough and it's always too much, just like my drinking and using, because that's the kind of alcoholic I am. I planned my first drink. I had the obsession to drink and use before alcohol ever even touched my lips. Because like I said, I saw the effects that alcohol produced on you, and I wanted what you had. I wanted a solution to this, and I knew that that was the answer. So my mom was out of town for work. I got my dad to take my brother, out of town on a father-son trip. I paid the babysitter. I got the alcohol, and the minute it touched my lips, I went like this. Peace and ease, serenity like I had never experienced in my entire life. I suddenly stopped thinking about what you thought of me. I stopped caring about what I thought about me. I had found the thing that I'd been missing my entire life, and I finally felt free from the bondage of self. And I knew that I was going to chase that thing. I knew that there was never going to be a point in time that I'd be able to exist without this newfound friend. I knew it. The big book talks about first it was fun, and then it was fun with problems, and then it was just problems. I went straight to fun with problems because Ronnie Lowenfield got in his car that night. He drove home. He crashed into a stop sign. His mother, Rhonda Lowenfield, didn't take too kindly to that. She wanted to see what was going on. She came over to the house. I was in some sort of a blackout, brownout. I vaguely remember what was going on. Apparently, I told her to go F herself. Well, in Texas, that doesn't work well. We don't really talk to our elders like that. Not to mention her father, Ronnie's grandfather, was the headmaster of the Episcopalian school. So that didn't go over very well. But, if you're anything like me, it's you, it's never me. I'm always going like this. If you would just relax, calm down, let me be a kid. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Everyone else was doing it. What about this person? I cannot take accountability because I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want you to see how I feel about me. So I got to keep you at arm's length. I started to pull geographics. I thought Texas was the problem. So I moved to Los Angeles. But here's the thing that took me a long time to understand. And if you're new, I'm going to let you in on a secret. Everywhere I go, there I am. There I am. And if I don't do the work that Mr. Chuck Chamberlain talks about, if I don't uncover, discover, and discard the wreckage of my past, it doesn't matter where I go, because I will be there. And see, my higher power likes to give me the opportunity to see the patterns and learn the lessons. My higher power will keep showing me these opportunities until I learn them. And sometimes that requires me going 150 miles into a brick wall to learn that lesson. I don't know what anyone needs. I always tell my girls, I don't know what you need. I don't know what you need to have the willingness to turn your will into your life over to the care of a God that you understand. But I hope you find it. And there's one thing I've learned from coming into Alcoholics Anonymous: our seat is not guaranteed. I know a lot of great people who walked out of these rooms thinking they would come back and they didn't. And I know a lot of people who stopped doing the work and they put a gun to their head, a needle in their arm, drank one last drink, and never made it back into these rooms. We're up against a progressive, deadly disease. If I don't have a spiritual solution, and if I'm not connected to you, there's no telling what's going to happen. I have to do this thing that, like, my life depends on it, because it does. So that's why, even though I'd rather be watching the 49ers game right now, I come to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I know the life that I have today is a life beyond my wildest dreams, and I don't want to risk losing it, not for 1 second. Here's the thing about my drinking and using that you need to know. It got progressively worse. I crossed every invisible line that I said I would never cross. I went to the gates of insanity. I experienced what the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about as pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. We all have drunk logs. We all have our stories. I don't like to focus on mine too much, because you know what? I'm a true believer. If you drink it, snort it, shoot it, smoke it, if it alters you from the neck up, you're in the right place. And you don't need to know my war story to know that I belong here. Because trust me, if I didn't belong here, I wouldn't be here. I heard a great speaker once say, I love how we have to qualify for alcoholics. And I have to tell you how bad it was for me to be in a room of 197 people, even more nauseous now. 197 people telling you how bad my experience with alcohol was. To be here, trust me, if I could have done it and didn't have to be in these rooms, I wouldn't, but I am so grateful that I am. I almost lost my life to this disease, and I got on my knees for the first time in a really, really long time at 18 years old, and I said to God, God, I don't even know if you exist, but if you do, please, please, don't let me die tonight. I promise I'll never drink and use again. It's a foxhole prayer. And I never had a drink or a drug from that day. And that's my sobriety date, April 1st, 2004. But the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about this disease being threefold. I have a physical allergy, a mental obsession, and a spiritual malady. And if I'm not treating all three things, I am not in recovery. But see, I didn't know about Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know that you guys existed. I didn't know that there was a world where people felt just like me and that there was a solution. I knew that I couldn't drink anymore. I knew that drinking and using was no longer an option for me. I saw where it took me, to death. Seconds and inches. But I didn't know what I was going to do. And see, without my medicine, my alcohol, which is a symptom, it's not my problem, it's a symptom to the problem. I was even more restless, more irritable, more discontent. I was a liar, a cheater, a thief, untrustworthy. I'm a taker. I am a taker by default. I'll take your time, your energy, your peace of mind. That's why I like to sit in rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and listen. I'm not usually thinking about what I can give. I'm not really thinking about what I can contribute, because taking is where I'm comfortable. Thankfully, all the women in these rooms have taught me a different way. Now I know how to give, I know how to show up and be a part of. But man, that doesn't come naturally to me. So here I am, white knuckling it, not knowing that there's a solution, wondering why I'm unemployed. I have no relationship with my beautiful parents who've been married now for 45 years, who don't have the disease of alcoholism. They don't know what to do with me. I'm not a sister to my brother. I don't have any friends. I didn't know it's because I didn't know how to be a friend. And I'm just blotting it out to the bitter end. I was never suicidal, but man, I didn't know how I was going to go on like that. And one day I was standing at the standing at a Coffee Bean. I was going to say the Coffee Bean at Fairfax and Sunset, but that likely means not very much to many of you. But I was standing at a Coffee Bean in Los Angeles, I think about noon on a Tuesday, because if you're unemployed and you have no family and friends, it felt like a really good place to hang out. And this gentleman, walked up the stairs, Coffee Bean. I'd never seen him before. He was wearing all white. He was handsome, really, really handsome. He walked right up to me. Call it a power greater than yourself, call it whatever you want, divine intervention. But this person walked right up to me. He introduced himself. He said, "Hi, my name is Shannon." I said, "Hi." He said, "Would you like to have dinner tonight?" Now, again, I had nothing going for me. So saying yes to a complete stranger at a Coffee Bean on noon to have dinner that night when I didn't know his last name or anything about him other than the fact that he was a very handsome, and women, I know, you know what I mean. It's just the kind of handsomeness that just swept you off your feet. And I said, "Sure." I didn't know if he was a serial killer or what, but I said, "Sure, I'll go to dinner with you." And we went to dinner that night, and the waitress came to take our drink order. And he said, "Do you want something to drink?" And I said, "I don't drink." He said, "Are you an alcoholic?" And I said, "Whoa, feels a little personal to be asking on a first date if I'm an alcoholic." I mean, I don't know what that means, but I just don't drink. I can't really control it. All bets are off. So I don't drink. Step one, I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it. And he said, "Oh, that's okay. I don't drink either. We'll order water." And the night went on and it was lovely. He dropped me off at home that night. He didn't murder me, thank God. And the next day he called and he asked me if I wanted to go to a meeting. And I thought, this is moving very quickly. I mean, I don't even know what this guy does for a living. He's already inviting me to a business meeting, but I'm unemployable. I have no friends. I have no family. Sure, I'll go to this ambiguous meeting. And he took me to the four horsemen meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous on Mulholland Boulevard. And there was probably about 200 people in the room. And I walked into this meeting and I thought, what the F? What is this? So he's not a serial killer, but he's a member of a cult. I mean, you guys were passing a basket. People were putting money in the basket, holding hands, chanting. Everyone seemed so happy. They were excited to see each other. And I was just like trying to survive on an hour by hour basis. And you guys seemed happy. And I thought, this is crazy. But he was just handsome enough, that I said, I'll just stick through the meeting. I don't really remember much about that meeting, but the speaker that night was a man by the name of Danny T. And I don't know if you've heard Danny T or you know Danny T, but Danny T doesn't look anything like a 20-something-year-old, girl from Texas. He had a handlebar mustache. He's about 20. I mean, he's in his 80s now. So he was in his, probably 60s then, late 60s. Long hair, tons of tattoos. He served time in Quentin. He was in a gang. He, shot dope, and anything about him even remotely resembled anything about me. And then he started talking about how he felt. He started talking about the fact that when he drank and used, it allowed him to be free from the bondage of himself. And that it wasn't until he had a spiritual solution that he experience a happiness and a joy and a freedom that he had only ever experienced from alcohol. He talked about feeling separate from, being different than, not a part of, thinking that he was the biggest, I curse, I'm so sorry. I know we're in the South, but I apologize. He talked about being the biggest piece of shit, that he never felt like he was ever good enough. And I thought to myself, man, I get that. I understand that. I feel that. What is this thing, Alcoholics Anonymous? I heard something that night, and I wanted to come back. I also knew that this hot guy came to this weird cult thing, and I just was like, well, this will be a good excuse to continue to run into him, People always say, the 13th step is not recommended, but I say whatever gets you into the rooms, and it got me into the rooms. That's a joke. I hope that didn't offend anyone. That's the thing with Zoom. You can never really tell. It's like, if people laughing, they hate you. It's like, well, okay, I'm getting one thumbs up and I'm going to take it. I'm going to take that thumbs up. So I went home that night and I Googled Alcoholics Anonymous, and there was a bunch of meetings, and I started going to meetings because I was just desperate enough. I had the gift of desperation, and that's why I wish it on any newcomer that's sitting in this room, the gift of desperation, because if I wasn't desperate, I wouldn't have Googled Alcoholics Anonymous, and I wouldn't have kept going and finding meetings. And I went to a bunch of meetings and I hated most of them. And I didn't like most of you because I didn't know how to be with myself. And you guys made me see myself, but I kept going. I kept going because you all had something. You had something that I wanted. You know, there was just enough attraction there that I kept going. And finally, I found this one meeting, the log cabin meeting at 1 o'clock in Los Angeles on Robertson Boulevard. And there was young people that looked like me, you know, that were going through things that I was going through. And I started to make friends, and I would hear, you know, women stick with the women and men stick with the men. And I didn't really like women. I didn't realize that I didn't really like women because I didn't like me. But you guys taught me that it's okay if I didn't like me, that you would love me until I love myself. You know, so I started making friends in Alcoholics Anonymous. You guys told me to get a sponsor, and I said, okay, sure. You know, by this time, the hot guy, I called him the hot angel because he was wearing all white. You know, I thought I was his AA girlfriend. He had like 13. I mean, I thought I was his AA. He was my AA boyfriend. He had 13 AA girlfriends, you know, so that fizzled out and that didn't work. But that's okay because I stayed, because I started making friends and I started connecting with some of the women in the rooms. You guys told me to get a sponsor, and I started working the steps. And I thought it was all bogus. I really didn't think it would work. You know, someone said to me, the first 3 steps are about desperation, and I was desperate. I was just desperate enough to go to the beach and stand in the water and try to stop that wave. It's in LA, that's something that the old timers do to get the young timers to realize there is a power greater than yourself. And I thought it was corny, but you know what? I couldn't stop the wave. So I believed I was just desperate enough. And then someone told me 4 through 9, that's about transformation. No, I'm sorry. It's about restoration. I started to restore myself, right? I started, you know, they say AA is a spiritual kindergarten. And that's where it starts. And that was my experience. I started to look at the causes and conditions of my life. I started to see that I had a part in everything. And as a result of seeing that I had a part in everything, I was able to ask God to remove the parts of me that were causing me so much discomfort and so much dis-ease. And I was willing to replace those things with assets, not perfectly, of course, but that was the process. I started, you know, to be restored. Chuck Chamberlain says, the person I came here looking for is the person I came here looking with. I was there the whole time. I just had all this stuff on top of me. I got to uncover, discover, and discard, you know, and then I get into the transformation steps. You guys told me I would transform. You told me I'd have a life beyond my wildest dreams. And I'm going to tell you something. You were right. You were right. You know, I found a job, not even a job, a career that I loved. I was able to mend my relationships with my family. I started to be the daughter that my parents deserved, you know, the sister that my brother deserved. I started making friends. You know, I started making friends. People relied on me, trusted me. I started to build this life beyond my wildest dreams. And I said, you know, thank you, Alcoholics Anonymous. Gave me all these great tools. This is so lovely. I've got a boyfriend now. He doesn't think I need this AA thing. You know, I've got this career. It's really, really busy. You know, it's really busy, and I love it a lot. And I'm not going to be able to make that meeting anymore. And I started to get farther away from Alcoholics Anonymous. Cunning, baffling, and powerful. It didn't happen all at once. You know, stopped going to meetings. I'd go when it was time to get my cake or give a cake. When it was about me, I'd go. Gave up all my commitments. I stopped calling that sponsor that had helped me transform and restore my life. And I got farther and farther away. And the funny thing happened. And you guys told me this would happen. You told me that anything I put in front of this, I'd lose. And I thought, it's not for me. I'm terminally unique. I'm different. I'm special. It's not going to happen to me. I got this. Right? And here's the news flash, right? What's the word? the twist of the story, it all fell apart. Just like you said it would. You know, I stopped practicing these principles in all my affairs. I stopped using the tools at my disposal, right? And I stopped knowing how to be in a relationship. I started only thinking about me. I stopped knowing how to be a worker among workers. So people didn't really want to work with me anymore. You know, I became selfish, self-centered again. It was louder. You know, you're either working towards your recovery or you're working towards your relapse. And my disease became louder than my recovery. And it all blew up. I got down on my hands and knees after the boyfriend left. We were going to have to sell the house. I wasn't employable anymore. And the only thing I knew how to do was pick up this phone and call one of those trudging buddies, one of those women from back in the days. The only thing I knew how to do. And I called my sober sister. She answered. You know those people who only call when they want something. Guilty. I called and I said, oh man, I'm in trouble. My whole life is falling apart. My whole life is falling apart. And she said, I'm picking you up. Let's go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, I don't think you're listening. I said, my life is falling apart. And she said, we're going to go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she drove me to Miracle Mondays, 7:00 on a Monday. I was like, why are we in this meeting? Because I hadn't been in the rooms for a minute. I was so scared. And the speaker spoke. I don't remember anything he said. They said, does anyone want to share? And she whispered, you should share. And I said, you should really work your own program. And she said, you should start working one of your own. I didn't like that very much, but my hand shot up. Power greater than myself, because I swear to you, I did not put that hand up. And I walked to the podium and I said, I'm Cara and I'm an alcoholic. And I just started trembling and sobbing. I had nothing to say for myself. 13 and a half, 14 years of sobriety, I didn't have anything to say. And I ran to the bathroom and it was very dramatic. She came in after me and she said, you probably saved someone's life tonight, but you definitely saved your own. Jump back in, get a new sponsor, work the steps. You know it works. And hey, if it doesn't work, your miserable life, it'll be here waiting for you. What do you have to lose? And I had that gift of desperation again. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I got a new sponsor who had what I wanted, who was spiritually well, because I was spiritually and morally bankrupt. And he took me through the steps, and I got to continue to uncover, discover, and discard those things. And what life is like today is life. It's life. I woke up today and I didn't feel great. I felt restless. I felt a little irritable. I definitely felt discontent. I was thinking about me, the things that I don't want, or the things that I don't have that I want, I should say. I was feeling really bad about myself, but I know that I have tools today. So I get down on my knees. I invite God in. I meditate. For the longest time, I thought step 11 was thought through prayer or meditation. Half measures, they avail us nothing. And I didn't realize meditation is something I can do all day long. I can do it when I'm driving. I can pull over. I can stop. I can set my timer for 30 seconds. I can let God in so that my voice isn't louder than God's voice. I did it right before the meeting. Man, I need to meditate. I need to be able to channel a power greater than myself. My power, the bigger my life gets, the bigger my God gets. My God grows with me as I grow. I get down on my knees and I meditate and I pray. I read the daily reflection. I send it to my sponsee family. I send gratitude to my sponsee family. I watch their gratitude come in. I see the program working in them. I have sponsees that I actively take through the steps. Because when I'm working with you, I'm not thinking about me. And I need that. Because I'm always thinking about me. Why don't I have this thing? Is it going to work out for me? Me. Right? But when I'm listening with you, when I'm connected to God, I'm outside of me. I've learned to have faith in the process. Faith, real faith. Bob Darrell, speaker that I listen to a lot, I mentioned earlier. Bob Darrell says that the difference between trust and faith trust and faith. Trust is sitting in a circus, and watching a tightrope walker walk across the tightrope. Well, it's actually, he says, bicycling across the tightrope. Faith is getting in the wheelbarrow with him and going across that thin line. I know that my will is urgent, it's desperate, it's immediate. God's will just flows. It's really easy for me to believe in my higher power when things are going my way. It's a lot more difficult to believe in God when my will and God's will aren't aligned. And right now, professionally, my will and God's will aren't really aligned. It's not moving as quickly as I'd like, But God's never late. God's always on time. That's been my experience. That really handsome Eskimo of mine that got me into the rooms. We now have a beautiful home together. He now has one AA girlfriend, and that's me. And we have a life where Alcoholics Anonymous is the center of our relationship. I speak at a meeting, he's speaking at a meeting. I'm working with sponsees, he's working with sponsees. AA is at the center. He called to make me an amends, and the joke is he's still making that amends one day at a time. And I love it. But if that relationship had worked out for me when I wanted it, I never would have experienced all the things that I got to experience. To learn how to have intimacy, emotional intimacy in a relationship, how to be a partner, how to participate in a relationship when it's not all about me, how to have boundaries. There's also, another great program, a sister program that helps with that. I'm a big advocate for that sister program. Thank you, Kevin. I see the time. And I've been counting down, trust me, counting down. Counting down. Not because I don't love you all, but because it's like, I'm a taker, I'm a taker. Got to remember that. My alcoholism tells me I'm looking at all these faces and I'm just hoping that I'm saying something that resonates. But I know that if I'm connected to a power greater than myself, I don't have to think about me. I know that God's speaking through me. And if you don't like what I have to say, blame Kevin, because I think he asked me to speak. Just kidding. No, he didn't ask me to speak. Someone asked me to speak. Blame whoever asked me to speak. No, but here's the great thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Is now with Zoom, there were 6,000 meetings in Los Angeles before the pandemic. So now there's thousands and thousands and thousands of meetings at our disposal. If you don't hear your story through me, keep coming back. There's another speaker that's got your story, that's going to say something that you're going to identify with. And that's what matters. So I'm in this relationship with the guy who got me sober after a decade plus apart. God's timing, not my timing. And we work the steps as it relates to this program in our relationship. Man, I've never had that experience before. I get to show up for my family today. Here's the great thing about my family. My mom is so Al-Anon that she goes to one Al-Anon meeting a week, and it's the double winners meeting she knows I go to, just so she can see me there. She hasn't changed, but I have. I've changed as a result of this program, so our relationship has changed. I don't need you to be different. I can be different. As a result of uncovering, discovering, and discarding the wreckage of my past. How I quantify my spiritual and emotional recovery today is how quickly I can go from restless, irritable, and discontent to happy, joyous, and free. If I'm connected to a power greater than myself, I can get there. That doesn't mean I'm never uncomfortable. My God, I'm uncomfortable right now. But I can walk through the discomfort. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, drinking is not a solution to my problems today. My solution is a connection to you and a connection to a power greater than myself. And I'm going to close with this. When I was doing the steps this last time around, after I was coming back from a period of dry, I was a newcomer all over again. That's the great thing. You can be a newcomer in Alcoholics Anonymous without ever drinking again. And I was doing my amends to myself. And my sponsor and I were talking about it, and there wasn't any lengths I wasn't willing to go when I was out there drinking. I always love, like, I'll invite newcomers when they say they want to get sober to a meeting. And yeah, I mean, you know, all the excuses. It's like, oh, it was raining. I couldn't find parking. Well, it's a holiday. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's like, listen, when I was drinking and using, it didn't matter if it was Christmas, raining, and there was no parking and there wasn't Uber back then. I found my way to the liquor store or the drug dealer to get what I needed. There was not any lengths I wasn't willing to go to find my solution. And I'm going to treat my recovery today the way I treated my disease. That means I'm going to speak at a meeting, even when the 49ers are playing. I'm going to come and speak in front of 179 people. It's like the half of me is like, oh, I scared, 20 people away. And the other half of me is like, thank God there's 20 less people on the this is the craziness, the insanity, the alcoholic mind. And but I'm going to show up today because I need you. I need to be connected to you. I need to be connected to the community of Alcoholics Anonymous. I need to be connected to a power greater than myself in order to maintain the life that I have, the life that you all have given me. I'm going to treat my recovery like I treated the disease. There's not anything I'm not going to be willing to do, even when I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to take that contrary action. I'm going to show up. And as a result, everything you all told me would happen, happened. I have watched women become mothers. I've watched women bury their mothers. I've seen people lose relationships, lose money, make money, get married. And I've watched them do it all sober. And that tells me I can do anything sober. I'm nothing without Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an honor and a privilege to speak at a meeting. Thank you so much for asking me to speak. Thank you so much for participating, all of you, all 178 of you, in my recovery today. I wish you all a great evening. Thanks so much.